If you want to start a business, it's not about your age. It's about your idea, your energy level, your ability to attract people around you. You can't let other people's idea of being old affect your life.
How long did it take you from the time where pets.com ended that you came up with the idea for the RealReal and started to pursue it?
It was years.
Wow.
When you come up with an idea for a business, there's a good chance somebody else has the same idea.
Right.
And then it becomes how you execute that idea. So I knew I had to move fast.
And you knew from the beginning, you're like, this could be huge. Like,
I knew
not
right away.
just a few consignment stores. Like,
No, I'm over what people think of me. I'm over about journalists chasing me. If I keep living in the past, it's going to change my future. This is it. This is my luxury solution. And Amazon will not be able to compete with this.
how did that decision come about?
It wasn't mine. The board fired me.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for coming on Step by Step. I'm so excited to chat.
Shelby, nice to meet you.
Yeah, straight from the airport. Oh my gosh, you have so much energy. I'd be like kind of tired.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it was, from it's easy
Quick
flight.
Okay, people aren't familiar with the RealReal. It is luxury consignment. How would you put it? Like, I always think of it as a luxury consignment website, but also brick and mortar stores.
It's a luxury consignment business that's
Yeah.
mostly on the internet.
Yeah, and I feel like you really made it big.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was before, I don't know, I never thought to buy secondhand stuff as much, but I feel like it made it really cool. If you've been in a store ever, they're beautiful. I'm
Well,
excited
that
to chat.
was the idea. I
Yeah.
mean, the idea was these luxury goods are amazing. They should be reused, resold, reworn. And I knew if I didn't make it cool, no one would do it. So it was trying to get people to change their patterns and recognize that. And, it's not, is a little bit of vintage, but some of these things are 3 years old. I mean, they're fabulous. Some people really flip fast. Some of them are in stores now.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, but they are previously worn, it just makes sense. My first hire was a merchant because I knew I couldn't make it cool. I wanted someone who knew how to make it cool.
A merchant as in someone who's picking the inventory? Or?
No, really showing how wearable things
Yeah.
are and how current they are, and making sure that there's a tone that's appealing to people and doesn't break. I always call it the romance of the brand. So it doesn't break the romance of the brand. So when you look at it, you're like, that's an amazing, let's just say Gucci jacket. And I can wear that today. And maybe it's 5 years old because it looks relevant because you pair it differently.
Yeah, it is hard sometimes to see the diamond in the rough if you're in just like a thrift store or an older luxury consignment store, because you're like, oh, this is cool, kind of. But I think it feels more curated at the RealReal, at least what you see in the store.
Oh, it's definitely
Yeah.
more curated. But also, I harness the power of the internet. So now you've got millions of people. There's a couple different things. You have millions of people that can buy your things, which is different than being trapped in the store. Everything in a store in the RealReal is also online. If it sells in the store, it immediately sells sold online.
Yeah.
So we really employed some really good technology there. So anything in the store is not locked in that store, which is different than almost every other consignment store in the world.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, when I left there, they were getting, and I left a couple years ago now, just to give you an idea, between 300 and 500,000 things a month.
That's crazy. Like, how do you
New things a month. Well,
like,
then you need a
photograph.
lot of technology and
Yeah.
processes and trained people and big operation centers. So no one has that kind of flow and can handle that.
Yeah, no, that is so difficult to figure out the operations of all that. But you do have a tech background.
Well, I worked in technology for a long time. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that you worked at pets.com.
I did, but before that, I started, I know this is like so long ago,
Yeah.
but I was at Clorox in brand management, and I got tapped to join a startup company called Software Publishing, which at that time was one of the first personal computer software companies. They introduced a product called Harvard Graphics, which was the precursor to PowerPoint. So Microsoft didn't invent PowerPoint, Software Publishing did. Oh. And then Microsoft sort of ate the whole personal computer software industry. But that was back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So the mid 80s when I joined them. And then I ended up I had ran international for a while for a software company, that one, and another one. But I ended up being a CEO of a company called Berkeley Systems, which had the flying toasters, and we introduced a game called You Don't Know Jack. And then I went to a company, and then that was sold. And then I went to a company as the CEO called RealReal, ReEL.com. It was the first site to sell movies online.
Oh, cool.
And Hollywood Entertainment bought it to, in theory, stop the internet, which that didn't work out well for them. And then I was the CEO of Pets.com. So that was my third CEO gig.
Yeah, so you had like a lot of success at these different companies.
Until I hit Pets.com, and then it sort of fell off the edge.
Yeah, but that was like so many of those companies at the time, right? Like the dot-com bubble, just like a lot of them kind of went bust.
You are absolutely right, but the press didn't cover it that way. I think there were about 1,100 companies that went out of business then.
That's crazy.
And it wasn't because they were bad ideas. I mean, if you look at Webvan, it had raised about $1 billion, built out this infrastructure, and then had to shut down. But Webvan was the precursor to DoorDash and Instacart. And Pets.com really is Chewy.com, although Chewy.com is run by different people, started much later.
Yeah.
So, yes, a lot of them still have, that was 25 years ago. Other companies came forward and did really well.
Yeah. So the idea was there, but were people not using the internet to buy things?
No. They were. No.
Oh, they were?
Oh, no, in a big way. Now, what happens, I mean, these are venture-backed companies. Yeah. And the market stopped financing unprofitable companies. It just shut the window down. And at that time, Amazon was probably, I think they launched, I'd have to research this, but I want to say 93, maybe 94. By the year 99 or 9, anyway, I think it was 1999, they announced almost $1 billion loss in a quarter.
Wow.
And the market's like, if they can't get profitable, we're not going to fund these other businesses. So the financing shut down. But no, they were doing Amazon then and struggled. I mean, they went through their rough time because they had to figure out how to keep their company going, but they were much bigger. So no, people were buying on the internet.
Yeah.
I think worldwide at that time, it was about 300 million people, mostly U.S. centric, but not only U.S. centric. And when you think of it, how many now, it's, but that was a worldwide number. So now I think there's 6 billion or something people on the internet. That may be a little overstated, but not much. Maybe it's like 5.8. I mean, there's, 8 billion people in the world or something now. So almost everyone's on the internet now. So, in 25 years, you would expect that. But there was a market back then. So there were people on the internet.
At that time when Pets.com shut down, you'd already had a successful career. Maybe you could retire kind of thing, or what was life like?
Well, I couldn't retire, and I was certainly young. So it was I was like 41 going on 42. So, what happened was the day Pets shut down, sadly, my husband asked me for a divorce. So then you've got no company, no husband, and early 40s. I didn't realize Pets.com would have such a negative impact on my career at that time. I did know that I had to figure out what I was going to do next because, you're 42. I hadn't had kids. And so I had to figure that out. Am I going to do something, have a child on my own? I was suddenly divorced or divorcing, which wasn't great. And then, when you have money, then all of a sudden you have half that amount of money.
Yeah, that's
when you divorce, because I didn't have a prenup. It became a big transition that was really, really difficult. And I would say it took me about 3 years to really understand that my career had come to a standstill because I did get busy. One of the venture capitalists asked me to come in, and it was a dark time in the industry. The industry sort of shut down, so they wanted me to help with some of their portfolios. But it was really bad. It was a really bad time.
Yeah, so for a few years.
There's like what was happening, and then my mindset was bad for a long time.
Oh, I imagine that's just a lot to hit you at once. Obviously, you picked yourself back up and
it took a long time, though. It did take a long time, and I would say, and I write in my book, which I'm glad I brought.
Yeah,
you
no, I'm so
your
excited
sister,
to read.
Your twin,
Yes.
your twin.
Yes.
Is she identical, by the way?
Yeah,
Oh
we're
my gosh.
identical. So I'll give it to her. This is also like my favorite type of book is autobiography, like memoirs, like business related ones. So I'm excited.
Oh, good. Well, I hope you
it.
like it. But I really did let that whole bad experience define me until I didn't. It was almost like at some point I knew I had to move on, and I was fed up, and I was over it. I'm like, I'm over what people think of me. I'm over about journalists chasing me. I'm over about all of my past, because if I keep living in the past, it's going to change my future. And I need to have my head moving forward, not stuck in the past or have one leg in the past. And also, I really beat myself up for that. And sort of the big turning point, I was always a CEO to hire, so I was working with recruiters, and a recruiter told me, you're never going to work again. No one's going to offer you a good job because of pets, and you haven't done a lot since then. And you're basically sort of, you're done. And I thought, okay, I'm either going to start my own business or I'm going to have to leave the state. It felt like there was nothing in between. I don't think there was, by the way.
Yeah. You just felt like, okay, you really can't go back into another CEO position.
Well, no one was going to offer me
Yeah.
one. And the ones that were talking to me, they were such bad companies. They had bad people, bad investors, bad ideas. Everything was bad.
So then it's sort of destined to fail almost. Like if you don't even believe in it, that would be just really tough.
Oh, it would be really hard.
Yeah.
And then if you think about it, since pets.com was considered a failure, no one's going to go, oh, we can't wait to hire her.
Yeah.
And then I was a woman over 40 in the tech industry, which is also hard. So I had a lot of negatives.
How long did it take you from the time where pets.com ended that you came up with the idea for the RealReal and started to pursue it? Like, was it a few years?
It was 10 years.
Wow.
Probably 9 if you count that I had to close the company down. 9 years.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
I was working for various things during most of that time, but it was not good. I mean, it wasn't good.
Like you didn't feel like it clicked?
No, there were bad jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, they were bad.
What were the jobs like?
Soul sucking. If you take something because you need the money, everything inside of you says it's not the right, or the people aren't right, or the business isn't right. It's soul sucking.
Yeah. And it was not obviously a CEO type of job, but
no,
just
they were
different
CEO jobs.
Oh, they were.
Yeah.
But
I think there was one general manager job in there. It just wasn't the caliber of where I'd been.
I imagine the tech world has a lot of people who are obviously very smart.
Oh, that always happens. But venture capital firms also, they take venture. So by its nature, they're risk takers. And in their portfolio, they have good companies and bad companies. The bad companies, is what I was being offered to say, oh, maybe she can turn this around, or we can put someone who had a failure in this company because it's already failing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's tough.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah. So then you come up with the idea for the RealReal.
Yes.
How did it come about? Were you shopping or like?
I was shopping, but that wasn't, first I had done an analysis of what Amazon could do and couldn't do. And then, I had a matrix. And one of the things I knew they couldn't do, because whoever is doing an e-commerce business on some level is competing with Amazon. Just the way it is. If you're building a big business, and I wanted to build something big.
Yeah.
So when I did it, I thought, okay, Amazon can't do luxury. And then I thought, well, but I'm not going to do my own luxury brands. But I knew that they were really in trouble there.
Yeah.
And then I was shopping with a girlfriend in a boutique that had a little bit of consignment in the back. She shopped. That's where my girlfriend shopped. And I couldn't believe it. First of all, it was a beautiful store. And the woman who owned it had merchandised the consignment beautifully. So it was, then she called the area the vault. So you walked into a different part of the store, and it was a shoe store that carried luxury shoes like Louis Vuitton and Prada and Gucci, but no clothing. But in the back, it was luxury consignment. Okay. And that's where my girlfriend shopped. I was so shocked that she bought consignment, because I shopped with her many times. She would never walk into a consignment store. She would never shop on eBay. I was worried. I was worried about what she was doing. And we got out, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. Like then, did you think it was kind of odd? You're like,
I did. I did. Because I knew her well. And I'm like, you just bought consigned things. You bought pre-owned things. She goes, who cares?
Yeah.
She said, this is like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada at a great price. Why do I care if someone else wore it? Look at this. I'm like, well, how do you know they're real? She goes, I trust the owner. She knows who gave them to her. And I thought, if she would do that, this is amazing. So why did she do it? Beautiful look, beautiful store. So they were merchandised beautifully.
Yeah.
Trusted the owner. She thought they were authentic. She loved a deal. Everyone loves a deal. But she wouldn't go on eBay because she didn't trust it for fakes. Mm-hmm. She wouldn't go into a consignment store because it was such a bad experience shopping. But she would do it in the right circumstances. So I'm like, this is it. This is my luxury solution. And Amazon will not be able to compete with this.
Yeah.
They will not be able to do this. And that's how I got started. And that's how it came down. I went home that night. I researched the luxury market. I had no idea how big it was. I'd started pulling things out of my closet that I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that were in the back. I had 60 things that had piled up there that would be considered a luxury brand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and they were dusty. And I'm like, well, because I wasn't using them and I didn't have a great closet. So it's not like I had room for things. So it was pushed in the back. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take some of my things and I'm going to use all the different methods for consigning and I'm going to build something better. So that's what I did. So I researched the market, tested all these different vehicles, and then wrote I was also writing a business plan and called the store owner where my girlfriend had been shopping and asked her if she wanted to join in because she was an ex-tech exec. She knows how to, I knew I couldn't make it cool. She had made it cool. Yeah, she really got it. And by the time she got back to me to have our first call, and it was the holidays, so you can't give her that, but I had already raised money, had a name, and was on a roll. And I'm like, you know what?
Just going for it.
I am going for it. And she's like, well, it isn't a good time for me. Anyway, I'm like, fine. 5 years later, she wanted to get in the company. It was too late. The company had moved on. When you come up with an idea for a business, there's a good chance somebody else has the same idea.
Right.
And then it becomes how you execute that idea. So I knew I had to move fast. Mm-hmm. So had the shopping experience with my friend Ann in November and launched in mid-June of 2011.
Wow. And so was the launch a brick and mortar store or online?
No, only online.
Yeah.
Only online.
That's smart.
Brick and mortar came later.
Yeah.
So that was 2011. And I think I put it in the book on the right date, but I think we did our brick and mortar test in 2017 in Soho. And then we had to find, and it went so well that then we were looking for a store. We launched our store, I believe, in 2018. The first store was in Soho.
Yeah. And so
it's still there. It's still the same location.
I've been to that one. I was telling before we started, but I do love that one. It has like a coffee shop kind of like underground.
I think it still does. They may have gotten rid of that, sadly.
Yeah, I liked that.
I love the coffee shop.
Get some coffee. Yeah. What was the first products that you got? Was it like handbags?
No, we got everything. So I knew automatically that we needed fashion, we needed handbags, we needed fine jewelry and watches. I had to get gemologists lined up for those.
Oh, yeah.
But we were picking up anything that we could. Shoes, we took shoes right away, belts. So my goal was, and we only focused on women to get started, but to have a wide selection so you could actually complete a wardrobe yourself by the time we were done. But we were always going into these multiple categories. And the first thing we did was go to our friends and we're going to do this business and do pickups. And then the second thing was I made a trip down to, and by the way, we're working out of my house while we're doing this. I made a trip down to LA and met with stylists. And I said, I've got this program, and if you bring a client, you'll get a % of the sale, thinking I need to focus on getting great supply. They know who has great supply, and hopefully it'll work. So then we're just chugging along, getting ready for our first sale. I rented a place. I didn't want to go too big because it's a new business. I think it was probably 2,500 square feet. It was a warehouse. It had a warehouse in the back. I had this really gross, crunchy brown carpet in the front.
Oh my gosh.
And then you walk to a little room where the photographer was.
Yeah.
But in order for the photographer to take a picture, he had to step into the bathroom.
Whoa, so this is a funky warehouse.
It was not, it was like a railroad car.
Yeah.
All right. And then there was a little alcove off of there that we stacked shoes and handbags eventually. And we put the accountant's desk in there, but it would get so hot. And we were getting all these things from, the Container Store, all those. Literally it would get so hot in there that the shoes or whatever's in those plastic, because everything was in a plastic container.
Yeah.
It would start leaning like
Oh my gosh.
I kept thinking the accountant at the time was a guy named Hugo. I'm like, we're going to kill Hugo. Poor Hugo.
Hugo's watching it
slowly melt.
Yeah.
And then the back was, we had rolling racks, and then we had a little loft, and it opened to an area where UPS could come. So it was really tiny in a dodgy area of San Rafael, but next to a sandwich shop that a cop ran, and it smelled like bacon every morning. Everything smelled like bacon because they were cooking up their bacon.
Oh, like the clothes?
I don't think we smelled like bacon.
Yeah.
I don't know if the clothes did.
The clothes are fine.
But every morning we're like, oh, there it goes. And I don't even like bacon, but the smell of bacon.
Yeah.
So we're always hungry. You're always hungry. You've got the bacon thing. You got the guy stepping into the toilet, to do the photographs. It was not ideal. But
were you like, what is my life? Like,
no. I just thought everything starts. It was better than being in my house, because that wasn't going to scale. And we had to ship. No, it was sort of fun, but gross.
Yeah.
It was like, but I have to say, and then just to make it even more fancy, put black baggies, garbage bags, taped them to the window so no one could look in.
Oh, yeah. Because, if they saw all the, valuable
stuff,
it would
be really bad.
Yeah.
And then trying to recruit in that place, you'd walk in and people would go, I remember one person walked in, looked around and ran.
They're like, I'm okay.
I can't do this.
I'll drive for Uber or something.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever they're going to do, they weren't going to work in that environment.
Oh, funny.
Because you'd walk on the carpet and it made a noise.
Yeah.
It's like plastic carpet.
But you gotta
we gotta start
small.
Small.
Because otherwise it would be super expensive to rent a nice warehouse. So
we did it. We were always space limited. The growth started happening, and then every place we went, because I was always afraid of taking on too much space and too much rent. I think that was only like $2,500 a month, and then but we grew out of it pretty quickly, and then the next space was a much bigger warehouse, but we grew out of that within a year. So it was like every year and a half we were moving, and every 6 months I was raising money. But I didn't raise money really. I raised from friends and family the first year, but I didn't raise venture capital money till the second year.
Was it difficult at first raising money?
Always.
Yeah, I feel like that would be hard. And maybe pressure, because once you raise up money, you want to make a good return for your investors. Do you feel that? Or did you feel
No, I did feel that. But but I also knew it was going to work.
You could tell. And
right
I'm sure
away.
Once you started testing, you're like, stuff is selling.
It sold out the very first sale we put on. So we only had enough product to do a sale every other day with 30 items, because we wanted at least a month worth of products. We just didn't have a lot of product. And then we wanted it to have a theme. The first sale we introduced, everything sold out right away. But before that, we had another problem. This is before we had a timer on the cart. Everybody was hoarding. So some people would put, we only had 30 things. So some people would put 10 things in their cart. We're like, oh my God. Then someone would get to the site and it would say on hold, on hold, on hold.
And they'd hold it for a day or something.
No, that was bad. No, we ended the night by selling everything, but we're like, I had a small engineering team, or a guy that was really one guy and another guy that was part-time. I'm like, we got to put a timer on this cart. We got to fix this problem.
Yeah.
It became like a high drama situation. Yeah. Anyway, but we did put a time. That's why that timer is on that cart hoarders.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, because people are going to think about it, maybe shop around a little more.
Exactly.
Yeah. But,
Anyway, so it all started really small and a little crazy. And I can't wait for you to read the book, because things like we had this woman burst into song. Well, because you hire friends, you get people doing, and she just loves singing opera. So she'd be working, and all of a sudden she just it'd be wafting some music, and it was just a bunch of hardworking people that had a little quirks. We were a little quirky in the beginning.
What was the most challenging part? Because I know it just seems like if I had that idea, I'd be like, whoa, operationally, it seems difficult. It's not like you simply order a bunch of stuff from a factory and ship it.
It's so different.
Going to all these different places and taking the photos.
So we had I'm pretty good at systems. It wasn't getting, once we got the product in, that wasn't the problem. The challenge was always meeting demand and focusing on supply and making sure we had a constant flow of really good product. That was the challenge. It still is.
Yeah. How did you do that? And I've seen some of it because I sold something with a RealReal, and I've seen it's definitely a good system where they'll follow up.
Right.
Whoever.
Yes, whoever came to your house. Or,
Yeah.
Right. Well, we always started with a sales team, but the sales team was Rati and I at the beginning. And which, isn't but we also did the work. So you have to go pick up and do the work. The first thing I did was I knew we needed service. We went to friends, then I went to stylists, and then the stylist started giving us product. In fact, one stylist really saved us, said one of our clients was cleaning out a warehouse in LA, and can we come down here and help? And that got us through the summer. And then other stylists were picking up. And then we did direct mail, believe it or not, did advertising and little local things like the Beverly Hills Courier.
Oh,
with
smart
high
Beverly
zip code.
Hills. Yeah.
Yeah. We got big enough that in LA, the business started picking up. So then when I could hire one person who also knew people, but it was direct mail. It was local newspapers that are, basically free for the user that were targeted. It was working the stylist program. And we just kept at it. We did home shows, believe it or not, where people would bring in their consignment and we'd talk about what we were doing. We did anything we could do to get people aware, because even when I left the company 2.5 years ago, I would say 40% of the people had never consigned before that were new. They were new to consignment.
Wow, yeah.
Because it's so hard. It was so hard before. So we were giving people a new way of monetizing the things in their house. And everything we did was different. It had never been done before. We had to educate people, and then we had to make it cool so people bought it.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was fun, though. It's a lot of fun.
Were you ever just like, how am I going to make a certain thing work? Would you get stuck on a problem? And what do you do if you're not sure?
Well, there were always problems that came up. And I would say, look, I have this problem. Or the business has this problem. And I'm like, what do you think? And people come up with solutions. And I like, what about this? They'd be like, and then we'd pin, if I threw something out, but we would then poke holes in it, and then we'd try it.
Yeah.
So yes, I came up with problems all the time that I couldn't solve by myself.
Yeah.
But collectively we solved the problems, and then we also measured it. Were we right or wrong? If we were wrong, then we iterated. Were we really wrong or little wrong? Most of the time we were 51% right, which is all you need to be, because then you can make it better and better over time. I'll give you an example. If you have a sales team and they go to someone's house, you want them to come back with, if they can, with higher value things than lower value things. And this isn't any disregard to Tory Burch Flats, but a Tory Burch Flat at the time was selling for like $89 on the RealReal. I don't even know if you can buy them anymore. But they were sort of popular, but $89. And at that point, the consignors still got 55%. Now that it's changed, they wouldn't get that much. They'd probably get $5. But anyway, or so they could spend their time going after that. Or they could also say, do you have any jewelry you want to sell? Or how about a handbag? Here's what the prices are and the discounts for handbags. How about a Rolex? Do you have a Rolex? So getting them to ask for things.
Oh, yeah.
But then the other thing is, how do you reward someone that is bringing in lots of high value, and you still wanted the Tory Burch Flats because they sold and they had a good price point. So how do you do that? And I was struggling with it, and I put it out, and this woman said, why don't you develop a point system like the airlines? And I thought, brilliant.
Yeah.
So, that's an example of, we had a problem. You want to encourage a behavior in your sales team. It's a complicated thing because you're offering a service. You're really selling a service, but if they ask for things, then you set a bonus schedule where they get more money if they bring in higher margin things.
Yeah.
So they're incented to ask for it.
Yeah.
But you also wanted to make sure you didn't cut off their ability to bring in things that sell, because obviously Rolexes don't sell as fast as, basic shoes. Or a nice skirt or a dress. Yeah, they just don't. That's a more considered purchase. It could start at $5,000, go to $10,000. So people aren't just like, oh, I think I'll spend $5,000 today. Yeah. So, but you'd spend a couple hundred if you're looking for something. So you had to balance that incentive structure to help them bring in the right things. So I knew the problem. I didn't have a good answer. And as soon as that person said it, we're like, yes. And then we started structuring it so it financially made sense.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I'm sure they spend a lot of time going from place to place.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a tricky job to be efficient, I'm sure, and actually get a good amount of stuff. Yeah.
It's a tricky job, but for some people, it's a really good job because you meet a lot of good people. It's not a bad gig for the right people. I mean, you do have to schlep, so that's the other thing, which is sort of funny. I don't think, it doesn't bug me, but I'm not that big. I carried, and everyone does this if you were, but I remember I have never carried so many things up and down stairs around. White bags, big boxes, because I was always schlepping, always. Because I was always moving something or always bringing in stuff for a friend to the op centers or bringing my own stuff to give to someone. So I would say during that time when I was there, regardless of how, even when I was the CEO of 3,000 people, I was schlepping boxes in, taking stuff out.
Yeah, it's tiring. And when you were building the RealReal, was it fun day to day? Were you really enjoying it or stressful?
It was mostly really fun and mostly really funny. I'll give you sort of a random example. One day, and this all happened the same day. So we're getting ready to put our first office in Manhattan and on 36th Street, but it's really a mess. It needs to be painted. It's been vacant for a while. Old light, we put in really good lights always. The woman that we had hired to be the head of New York City had hired these painters that were her husband knew.
Oh, okay.
And it was really hot in that building, and the windows were painted shut, and the air conditioning wasn't going yet. And it was in the summer.
Yeah,
so we were getting it ready
hot.
for September. So hot. But we were also installing security cameras everywhere because we needed security cameras. We needed for so many reasons, but mostly to make sure employees didn't steal things. So we're testing the cameras. So that's happening. But no one told us the men worked naked.
What? Oh my
because
gosh.
They didn't want to ruin their clothes.
Oh, what?
So, it's like, and these were big, hairy men.
Yeah.
So that was how, and all of a sudden, I'm back in the office and you hear people going, like the person, and I'm like, shut the cameras down.
Like they're reviewing the tapes.
But it wasn't everyone.
Yeah,
Not everyone had access to the security. It was like, and then we're like, and then I didn't want to see it, but then I'm like, Rachel, do you know these guys are working naked? And she goes, well, it's hot, and no one's in there. I call it the naked day in the book.
Yeah.
So that was funny and shocking, and no one really needed to see that. And then the other thing is when you do different sales, some people want to be known, right? And maybe they're going to give their money to charity. So we were going to do this actress sale, and we always ask for what shots do you want us to use about you? This actor, female, sent us pictures of herself semi-nude to use to sell her product, her clothes.
Oh.
And we're like, no, we can't use these.
Yeah.
She was gorgeous, but like a little piece of fur would be covering parts of her bits. And we're like, no. So we have the Russian naked people. They were Russian.
Yeah.
We have the Russian guys in New York who are naked. We have the celebrity photos coming over, and like this woman's basically naked. I'm like, what is happening today? And so, random stuff happens.
Maybe she was
every
thinking
day.
Like those old PETA ads, wasn't it?
It felt like it was one of those. It felt, we're like the fur is like, and then, No, it was
That's
so
funny.
random. And just stuff happens. And in that we had moved to this other place. Well, there's just so many silly things. We had moved out of the crunchy brown place to a place that was a mixed use place that had artists, but there was a commerce section. No one told us that when the king tides come in, all of the cars in the front of the building are actually underwater and they start floating away.
What?
So we had to watch the tides. The first time it happened, all the alarms are, everyone's running out. It's really bad. It's just not, people that work there? No, that we didn't know. All the cars are in the back. But then we had another problem. No one told us that raccoons lived under the ramp from our back door, and literally they would chase, because that was their home and there was garbage bin there, and they'd worked out their whole little raccoon system. So you would hear someone go, okay, is it safe? Are the raccoons going to get me? And we'd like send out like a decoy to see if the raccoons would, like, we'd throw something out the door to see if they would go. But you'd hear people running to their car, and you'd see the raccoons were like, you're on our turf.
Oh my God, they're not scared.
No, they had no fear, but we were afraid. So like everything was
all kinds of stuff.
You're running a business, but my favorite one.
Quick break to thank ZBiotics for sponsoring today's episode. If you guys haven't heard of ZBiotics, it's really cool. It's a pre-alcohol probiotic drink, and it's actually the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by some PhD scientists to help with those rough mornings after drinking. So I love this. But anyway, how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into an unwanted byproduct in your gut, and it's that byproduct actually, not dehydration a lot of the time. That's usually to blame for not feeling your best the next day. ZBiotics is designed to produce an enzyme that breaks that byproduct down, which is what helps you feel more like yourself the next day. So this is how I use it. I drink it as like a pre-alcohol drink, and it's my first drink of the night. I feel like that's going to get you the best results. Then just pace yourself, as you're drinking, still hydrate, still get a good night's sleep. I think that's still important to get like good sleep. And then the next day I can be up early editing, playing tennis, whatever I've got planned. So it can make a big difference. And I mean, spring is here. So that means weddings, weekend trips. Don't forget your ZBiotics. If you want to try it, you can go to zbiotics.com/Shelby to get 15% off your first order when you use the code Shelby at checkout. They even offer a 100% money back guarantee. So there's nothing to lose. If you're watching the video, here's what it looks like. Here's one that I have. You don't have to drink like this huge drink. It's like literally the size of like a little shot, which I think is nice. It's like convenient. You can throw it in your bag, take it with you. So yeah, thanks to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get back into the episode.
My favorite one, it was really an artist there that had rented space. And we had a second floor, but it was also a warehouse below us. And there was, I think, 3 or 4 floors. But anyway, there was an artist studio right above us, and we're running a company. We have customer service. We're pick, packing, shipping. No one had been in that space for a while. And every day, whoever was up there would pound on the floor. Like a bad, like we were bad roommates, right?
Yeah.
Like with the broom or something. Like, here she goes.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we weren't going to stop. We were working. So finally she comes down, and she is mad.
Oh.
And it took about a month though. And I answered the door, and she's like, this is an artist facility, and I make art every day. What do you make? She's like screaming at me. And I almost started laughing because she was so mad.
Yeah.
And I just said, I make jobs.
Yeah.
You want to come in?
Like what?
Do you want one? She goes, what do you create? I go, I create jobs. Come on in.
Yeah.
But every day we'd like, when is she coming? Because we knew with like, here she goes. We're going to get the pounding on this, So I would say it was mostly fun because we did you do everything. You have to open the box, right? Anyway, so early days, it was, Rati and I, the first employee was Rati Levesque, who's now the CEO. Mm-hmm. We opened every box and did everything to get it ready.
Took the photos and everything?
Well, no, we did. She had to take the photos a few times because I was out trying to get stylist deals, and the photographers kept quitting because it wasn't a great job. Because they had to take a lot of photos and they had to edit it, and they
don't get to be. Photographers are so creative, and they're just like,
it was not a creative job.
Click.
It was a job that paid money, but it wasn't creative. So it was sort of a burnout job, unless you could treat it as, okay, I'm making money and then I can be creative on the side.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a creative job. Now, there were creative parts because there was from the beginning, we had editorial. So we did do
style.
Editorial shoots.
That's fun. Then.
Yeah, that was fun and creative.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was a system of like getting all the angles at once. Like, what did it look like? How did they take the photos?
Well, now it's highly sophisticated.
Is it? Yeah.
At the beginning, it really was a mannequin that was totally inappropriate for production. It was hard to dress, and lines on a wooden floor, white paper, lines on a wooden floor that showed where he had to, and then what would happen is he would take it, he'd go into the restroom to get the right angle.
Oh, because it wasn't quite big enough. Yeah.
So this is when we were in the crunchy brown place. And then take the photo. Then he'd have to run over to the mannequin and turn the mannequin and take the photo. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to ask. And then for the jewelry, they had to make light boxes because it reflects. So we had to build, and then by the time we
softbox.
got to the raccoon area, we had a whole building separate from this building, but attached to the complex. That was only for photography. And that was the beginning of much more sophistication, because then we needed more processes. We had different ways for photographing things like fine jewelry and watches versus, clothing. And so it kept evolving. And I would say then it was somewhat technology driven, but really process driven. And over time, technology got more and more. But there's still people taking pictures, hundreds of people taking pictures every day. You can't really automate that. And also, we don't have stock photos. Everything that comes in is unique. So it all has to be photographed.
Yeah, because I know it's like you can even zoom in and you can see if there's any sort of damage or whatever. There's usually not like any like real damage. But
Well,
like
if there is, it should be called out. Yeah.
Like
or shouldn't have been taken.
Yeah. I see a lot of people talk about balance these days with
In their life?
Yeah, like if you're trying to grow a business, and some people say like you just can't have balance for a few years. How did you manage that? Were you just like working 24/7, or did you?
I was.
Yeah.
And I think when you found a company, when you've got your own business, you may not be at work, but you're thinking about it. You may want to just totally relax, but my bet is you're checking your texts or your emails when even if you're on a little trip.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get paid. In this case, I had employees. So I would say if you want great balance, you should not start your own business.
Yeah.
It is not a part-time thing. Now, you can always do a little side hustle and make a little bit of money.
And you knew from the beginning, you're like, this could be huge. Like
I knew
not
right
not
away.
just a few consignment stores. Like
No, I knew. No. In fact, it really is more of an internet business. No, my plan called us to get to 100 million in 3 years, and we did.
That's amazing.
I know.
I imagine mostly from online sales.
Oh, it was all online.
Yeah.
Then. And even now, I don't know the exact numbers, but my bet is it's still something like 90% online.
Yeah. I almost feel like the brick and mortar, it's like great advertising in a way.
It
like
is. It's a brand builder, but it also, it's easy to drop off product at a brick and mortar store. And this number isn't relevant anymore because it's an old number, but that Melrose store, which was our first store, it's in West Hollywood on the corner of La Cienega and Melrose. That was our second store. And that at one point was bringing in $100 million a year. A combination of product in, people dropping off, of the value of the product in, and sales. So in aggregate, it had that ability, both sales and product in.
Because some would get sold online, basically.
Well, almost all of it gets sold online, but people were dropping off. So it became a really good place to get consignment drop off and an easy thing. People didn't want to go to their house, or maybe they just were I'll just drop these things off. So it's a good place to get product, a good way to get product, and a great place to sell product.
And then at a certain point, you guys went public, right?
In 2019.
Yeah. How did that decision go? What did you really want to, or was it?
Oh yeah. I mean, there isn't a natural buyer for the RealReal.
Yeah.
And when you take money, you do have the pressure of making a return for your investors. So it allowed the investors to get a return. It allowed the employees to have incremental money. And it was an amazing day. The investors that were really smart then exited the boards. Some of them had their money in since 2012.
Wow.
So 7 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time to wait to get a return.
But they got a good return, I'm sure.
If they sold.
Yeah,
You have
right
to sell.
then.
They had to, you have a lockup with the SEC for
Right.
6 months, but they had to plan to get off the board, and then they could sell because then they weren't considered insiders. So I would say the smart investors got off the board and sold their stock, and one of them didn't, and but then, he didn't. So he's lost money.
Yeah. Were you able to sell stock then too?
Oh, I was selling. Well, what happens when you're the CEO
Right.
or an insider, any named exec? Well, actually, any exec. But I had to just set aside what my selling plan was ahead of time. So I couldn't, we had open windows, but I had to let everyone know I'm going to be selling X amount every single, I think it was every quarter. You had 6 weeks. And so I had to put my selling plan, you had to file it.
Yeah.
So it's not about the price. It's about you just file the plan. The price is the price ahead of time.
Yeah.
So I had to file my plan. So yes,
Yeah.
I sold stock.
And along the way, because I know it's like, if you're the CEO, some people take the route of like, they barely pay themselves. And then some are like regretful of that because then they so badly want to go public or sell too early. Were you able to pay yourself a good amount?
I didn't. I didn't until we were, much, much bigger. And no, the first year, when I always say my first employee, it's because I wasn't the first employee. I paid other people but I didn't pay them very much because we didn't have that much money coming in. No, it took me about, I would say 15 months I would take like maybe the first year I made like $25,000.
Yeah. In the Bay Area, that's tough.
Oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Like tough to live on. Yeah.
Oh no, you can't.
Yeah.
No, you can't live on it.
Yeah.
But it got better. But look, Rati shut her store down. She had a brick and mortar store, joined the company, and I said, I can only pay you $2,000 a month. But she was young. She said, I'll take a risk. She had a little bit of consignment in the back of her store. She understood the power of it and understood that it needed, and she was is a great merchant, even though she's bigger than that now.
Was it difficult to go from being a CEO of other companies and making a good salary, I assume, to then starting your own and being like, okay, I gotta really like budget more?
Yes, it was hard. I mean, the good news is I was working so much, I wasn't thinking about vacations.
Yeah.
And if I bought clothes, I bought them on the RealReal.
Yeah.
So,
did you borrow any, or it's like they're people's, so you
no,
can't?
because no, that would be uncool. We had a lot of rules. Like,
Yeah.
One of them was no employee can buy things until 3 days after it's been on the site. Because
so they don't get all the good stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you knew what it was when you're working in the op center. So that was number one, no borrowing anything. And then the other one was, if people steal from the RealReal, we will call the police. So there were key things we didn't mess around. If you steal, we will fire you and we will file a police report. So you could go to jail, depending on the amount, but you're going to have a record. Number one. Number two, if a counterfeiter worked with us and we received counterfeit goods, we reserved the right to keep them.
Oh, yeah.
We kept counterfeit goods.
What do you do with them?
Well, you have a small warehouse for them.
Yeah.
So it discourages, the RealReal's business has always had a little bit of vendor product. And, sometimes the vendors would send us real things, and then right around the holidays, we'd get a box of fake Prada handbags or something.
Whoa.
So then we would confiscate those goods. And then with a consignor, they got one sort of get out of jail free card. So if you send us something that was counterfeit, we would say, look, we can't authenticate this item.
Like maybe they didn't know.
Maybe
or
they didn't
something.
know. And honestly, there are a lot of celebrities that were getting fake Birkins or fake It bags, and we didn't know if they knew. And so you give someone the benefit of the doubt once. So the first one we would send back.
Yeah.
The second one we would keep and say, I'm sorry, you can't consign with us anymore, period.
Yeah.
So then we had a blacklist. Well, no, clearly there's something going on.
Yeah.
And we're not the company wasn't the right place to sell counterfeit goods.
I remember there was some sort of controversy where maybe some counterfeit goods slipped through the cracks.
Oh, of course they did. Well, no one has 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
But just to give you an idea, when I left there, between 300 and 500,000 items came in every month. There's a lot of tools employed, especially now. There's a lot of AI and there's a lot of machine learning as a first pass. There's also pattern recognition with consigners. So you know which consigner was like a new consigner if they have a bad pattern. So you could also, they go in a different swim lane. So there's a lot of technology applied along with humans oversight. Is the accuracy rate 99.9 something? Yes. Does that mean it's 100? It can't be 100%. Nothing is.
Yeah.
So then what does the company do? If anyone has any issues, you just take it back. You don't ask, and you reevaluate it and see it's either a training opportunity or it's an opportunity because the beauty of the way the whole system's set up, who touched every product. You know how the product was evaluated and where it started with machine learning, if it did, or AI. You know all of that. So you can go back And if someone consistently has had a problem, then that person obviously needs retraining or they need to leave the company.
And then in 2022, you left the RealReal?
I did.
How did that decision come about?
It wasn't mine. The board fired me. It was highly traumatic.
Yeah.
And do you remember me saying that the board members got off? My original board members got off to sell their stock. So it was pretty much a new board, except one person didn't get off. And
So
I don't
all new people. Yeah.
And we were coming out of COVID, and it was very traumatic. COVID was very traumatic for the business because it's not a self-posting site. You had to go to figure out a way to get product. And my theory is, although I don't know, I was told I didn't make my numbers during COVID. That's what someone said.
Like,
which
did
is
any company make
no,
good
it's a
numbers?
bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a bullshit. My theory is the one person who didn't get off the board and didn't sell his stock and didn't make money was working against me on the board to bring in his own person. And then honestly, once there was a lot of shenanigans going on, I didn't help myself. And I would say there's two lessons. And they brought in a man who then was terminated about 15 or 16 months later. And then now Rati's running the company.
Oh, that's good.
But it's still the same board.
Yeah.
So I would say the mistake I made, there's two mistakes. And one was told to me by a man, which I think is interesting. He said, well, Julie, it sounds like you recommended people on the board because you thought they had expertise in a certain area. That's what women do. What men do is they bring in people that support them.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, that's one person's thing, but it rang true when I
Yeah.
heard it. And then the other thing is, which, again, I would say values are really important. And when you're doing a startup that has high growth, that's collaborative, that's primarily a technology company, and you bring in people from a corporate environment who have never seen high growth, who are not technology, maybe they have expertise. In low growth businesses, politics matter more than what people do because that's how people, so if you bring in people from a corporation or recommend them, in my case, I recommended them, they don't have the same sensibility or value system. And it was a big mismatch. Now, I also could have done better bringing them along, but I was also coming out of COVID, and I did have had one actor. I'm pretty sure one actor acting against me.
Yeah.
And also, I hate it when people lie to my face, and
And
I'm
they
not
were-
really polite.
So it was like a shock one day.
It
like
was
when
at a
you learned-
board meeting where it happened. The
And you had
beginning,
no
the beginning
idea.
of the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like that you started to realize.
No, I didn't. I do write about it in the book, and it's probably best for someone to read it. But like my new CFO was already picking up on it, so he's like, "Something's going on. There's a troika. It's not good for you. I'm feeling it." I didn't know if he was paranoid or
You're like,
astute
it's fine, maybe.
because I didn't know him.
Wow.
I'm just working away. I'm heads down.
Yeah.
I am heads down trying to get the business back in shape after COVID.
Yeah. Does that kind of thing ever make you think if you started another company, would you want it to be private? You know, because then you don't have.
I don't know about that. I think really it comes down to understand the value systems of the board. We didn't have a shared value system, and I wouldn't put corporate people, I wouldn't load it up with corporate people ever,
Yeah.
because they're never going to understand a startup. And they're never going to understand high growth. And they didn't have a technology background. And honestly, I wouldn't put that many women over 40 on my board either from corporations because they're not nice people.
Oh, whoa.
Yep. And
From corporations specifically?
Yeah. I would say women who have participated in the corporate world over 40 or maybe even older are not nice.
I will say I've seen on TikTok a younger girl working in the corporate world, and she'll be like, why is my older coworker so mean to me?
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah, I was seeing that and I was like, what? You'd think they would maybe want to help.
No.
Be like, no, they're not.
No, think about it. They didn't get where they got by being
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And they're and they're threatened. And honestly, it's a value system. They're hierarchical. They're political. It's very hard to go to a corporation and say, I did this, unless you really did it. And most people don't make a huge impact. They just shuffle the deck chairs around. Some people do,
Yeah.
and those people are transformative. I mean, there are certainly transformative people in the corporate world, but those people are more the exception.
Yeah, I've heard it's hard to just get things done. It'll be like emails back and forth about like almost nothing.
Well, if you think, yes, I mean, there's a reason for that. Just think about it. If you had a multi-billion-dollar business and someone has this radical idea, but it could shift the business in a way, you're not going to just let them do it. You're going to test your way. Plus also, if the business, I mean, there's so many reasons to keep the ship moving in the way the ship was moving, unless there's some huge disruptive factor and they didn't see it coming. But I mean, businesses get obsoleted all the time with that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
It's not a risk tolerant venture, a business, an established business, especially a Fortune 500. It's not a risk tolerant business. It is the opposite of a startup, which is all risk tolerant. And the people on the board, when you start, the venture capital people are risk tolerant. That's their job. So the profile is so different. So in my defense, because I did recommend these people who killed me, I would say I have not worked in a corporation since I was 25 years old, and I was 65, and I didn't understand them. When I left the corporate world, I left because I didn't want to be the people above me. And it was a long time ago. There's so many reasons I left, and I really felt computers were the future, and software was, and I was right. But I didn't see myself being those people and conforming and doing things on increments. And I know this is way oversimplification, and I know it's, there's probably people are going to hate me for saying it, but the generalizations are always tricky. And there's always exceptions. But in this case, I'm not wrong.
I respect just the hot take, because I feel like these days on the internet, it's like people are afraid to just say what they actually think sometimes. I know I kind of feel like that. I'm like, I don't know, am I going to offend someone? But
I'm sure I am.
But if that's your
experience, I'm not wrong.
But I get bored watching people that are just like, you can tell they're holding back,
Again, it's a generalization.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions.
So then after you left the RealReal, were you wanting to do a new business?
I started a company called Ahara, which is a personalized nutrition company.
Cool.
And we're in the process of figuring out where we go with it and talking to potential buyers. And then I wrote a book. I wrote the book, Time to Get Real.
So you're always staying busy.
I am very busy. And then I help entrepreneurs on a regular basis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I would say the book is purposely written to take you on the ride that I went on with the RealReal, but it has all my key lessons woven in.
Yeah.
So I sort of take you as I'm going through it. I'm learning the lessons, and then I want to make sure I pass it on. And the rationale for the way the business was structured. And it's a fast read because I don't want people to be bored. And I hate a lot of extra words.
If someone is listening to this and they're in their 40s or 50s and they're thinking, oh, it's too late though.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what would you say to that? Because you started the RealReal when you were
52. I know it's been misreported. I did turn 53 that year.
Yeah.
But I was 52.
Yeah.
I would say if you're worried that you're buying into people's definition of ageism, that's silly. It is absolutely silly, because if you want to start a business, it's not about your age. It's about your idea, your energy level, your ability to attract people around you, to get it done. And it's silly. Don't buy into you can't let other people's idea of being old affect your life.
Yeah.
Because you only have one life. To say you're 40, it's like at the beginning. And let me tell you, especially for women, 40s are hard because a lot of people have kids, and that's hard. A lot of people have old parents that start needing. So women in particular have a bigger challenge. And then the next thing that hits is menopause or perimenopause, which is also hell to go through. It's funny, I was talking about it today. I'd forgotten how bad it was. Here's the beauty. You're smarter. You're better with your time. So as you get older, you know what you know. And on many levels, it's easier. Because you're not do I know this? Do I have more to learn? You're not testing yourself anymore. You're putting what you know to work, and then you can manage the other things. And I would say the 50s might be easier than the 40s. A lot of people do have young children and, that are moving through or 40s are also a period of divorce. A lot of people get married in their late 20s, early 30s, and then 10 years later, it's like, boom. So, or 15 years later. So the 40s can be a transitional time,
People don't talk about that, you know?
No, I know.
They're just think, oh, you get married and whatever. But it's like, no, probably for a lot of people.
Well, 50%,
Yeah,
52%.
50% are, you know, starting over. Even if not getting divorced, maybe just career change, whatever, you know?
It's hard. I mean, women do have it harder. Let's just be clear, because if you want to have children, you have to make decisions.
Yeah.
But by your late 40s, your early 50s, you pretty much know who you are. You know what you got. You know how to manage your time. Hopefully you've gone through some of the trauma in life. I mean, you never escape it. But I would say as long as you're healthy, it is awesome. It's never too late. It is awesome. But the key is healthy and being clear of your choices. But you're much clearer when you're older of your choices and aligning your values with your choices. It's really clear. And I think in your 20s, it's maybe harder because you're still testing yourself. You're still getting to know yourself. 30s are a time of maybe going a little further, but you may, you know, there's a lot of distractions in life. There's weddings, there's kids, there's jobs, there's bosses, there's weird things in the world that throw people off. So I would, you know, no time is great on many levels, and every time is great if you want to do it.
Yeah.
It's not about age.
It's
not about age.
Like, do you think it helped you? Like, if you started the RealReal?
I don't know. I think for me, the RealReal was all about the right timing and the vision I had for it, but it didn't hurt. It hurt with financing, to be honest, because, you know, here's this older woman coming. No.
I would have thought, oh, you have these connections now.
No.
Wow.
No, it wasn't, because I was still venture capital, which is mostly men, and, you know, women get less than 2%.
Yeah.
So that didn't help. But that was the only thing. And then I got great investors around the table in general. I mean, there was like one bad one in the end, but up until then they were great and added a lot of value. So that's always hard. But, you know, most people don't do venture capital. So, you know, but, you know, honestly, these are things to look out for. No matter what you do, if you start your own business or you take a risk on yourself, there's always obstacles that come up, and then it's your mindset and how you approach it.
Yeah, totally.
There's always something.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're going to let that drag you down. You're going to push through it. I'd say push through it.
Yes, love
it's
that.
It's worth
Good
it.
Message.
Don't you think it's worth it?
And then last thing, if you're open to talking about it, because I'm like curious if this did impact your journey, like building the business, is if you did end up having kids.
I think it would have been really hard.
Yeah.
It would have been harder. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't. So I got divorced at 42, and I went through a personal journey of figuring out, did I want to be a single mom? Because that's what I had. Still had some couple good eggs. I could have done something.
Yeah.
And decided I didn't want to intentionally be a single mom.
Yeah.
And that was a hard decision. Makes me a little sad, but I don't have regrets because I chose the path I chose. It gave me free. I have a lot of nieces and nephews now. I've got 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Trying to count. I think only 4. Grand. I have 3 grandnieces and a grandnephew. So, you know, they're out there. Those kids are out there, and they're great.
Yeah,
and they're great.
I think the conversation around it's changing. Like, I uploaded an episode where I'm like, I don't really feel like
I saw that. I didn't listen to it.
I was just like, I just have never really like felt that I wanted that, but the societal pressure
is
I think
real.
More people are kind of being like, yeah, I don't know. I think some people, like, from a young age, they definitely do want to, but then there's not a lot of models of like, oh, so what does your life look like?
Well, I'm here to tell you it's not bad. It's a very rich life, and there are other people like you, even in my generation. It's a rich life.
Love to see it.
Also, I mean, I went, especially before the RealReal did suck out a lot of my time, but I went to their, you know, my nieces and nephews who are now grown people that are having children or considering getting married. But I went to their cheerleading meets or their volleyball games or their choir concerts. You know, I was involved in their soccer tournaments or just their soccer games. So I was there in the background, and I'm still there. Yeah. So, you know, there are other ways. But the other thing is, when I was growing up, I was the oldest of 4, and I had to help raise my brothers and sisters. So when I when I got into my 20s, it wasn't, it felt restrictive.
Yeah.
And not something that I naturally wanted to run and do. Yeah,
right.
It felt very
like
restrictive.
You knew what you'd be getting yourself into, kind of.
It was it was a very restrictive feeling for a young person to have. But then intellectually, I got past that, especially when I was, after my divorce, I'm like, oops, better figure this out. Got a few good eggs hanging out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I made the right decision for me.
Yeah. Love to see that you're like still living a rich life. Like I feel like people
really great.
like to act like they're like you can't. I'm like, I feel like you
come on.
I know.
No, it's your life. You make your own decisions.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not it's you have to take it with great consideration.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So I'm excited to read the book. I'll link it below. I'll link I found you're on Instagram.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
RealReal Julie.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yes, RealReal Julie.
That.
Oh, Amazon just picked it as one of the best books of 2025.
Oh, awesome.
Then they put so far.
So far.
So
oh
far.
My gosh.
That's
well,
okay. I'll take it.
Yes. We'll see at the end of the year. They'll be like, yep, still up there.
Still up there.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. I'm so excited to read it. Great. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your LA trip.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.